16 years ago, Illumination Entertainment was the first major animation studio to truly shake up the industry since DreamWorks. In that time, the studio has certainly made a name for itself, for better or for worse. But even with its reputation of producing mid-films, there are plenty of gems amongst all that Minions merch. I'm Kyle with Wicked Binge, and this is Illumination Movies Worst to Best. Now, as the title states, we're going to be ranking all 13 Illumination films, including the recent Super Mario Bros. Movie. So obviously, spoilers ahead for the entire Illumination catalog. With that said, in dead last, we have, at the time of writing, Illumination's only live-action/animated hybrid movie, Hop. Yeah, if you've seen our other Illumination videos, you likely aren't that surprised to see this movie at the bottom of the minion-colored barrel when it comes to the studio's films. Overall, there is very little to praise about it. Because this was a hybrid film made in the 2010s, the animation ranges from tolerable to looking very dated. The humor is really only appealing to younger audiences, save for a reference to Knight Rider of all things. And while that isn't necessarily a bad thing, it sure doesn't make the film any easier to watch.
You're kicking me out.
The main character, EB, is your standard kids movie protagonist at best and incredibly annoying and unlikable at his worst, while the other characters like Mr. Bunny and Fred feel very much by the numbers. While the film's villain, Carlos, is pretty alright, his role in the story comes with some pretty questionable implications, as many have pointed out, so even the film's so-called best elements can leave a bad taste in your mouth. With so little to enjoy about this film, it definitely earns the bottom spot. For our runner-up in terms of worst Illumination movie, we just have to go with the Lorax. Now, in comparison to Hop, there's actually a lot of good with the Lorax. The animation is bright and fun, the songs are catchy if a bit annoying, and both Ed Helms and Danny DeVito give great vocal performances as the Onceler and the Lorax respectively.
I'm the Lorax! Guardian of the Forest!
Unfortunately, for as much as some people may find this film and certain elements of it to be a guilty pleasure, it just can't be ignored how much this film butchers the original book's messaging, boiling it down to something very simple and basic instead of something introspective and thought-provoking. Outside of the Onceler and the Lorax, the other characters are very archetypal and don't leave much of an impression. Much of the movie's humor is also pretty lame if we're being honest, and while it can still have its moments of being cute or fun, that really only takes you so far when the core of the movie feels like it's been sanitized in order to be more marketable. Moving up the list, we have The Secret Life of Pets 2. While perhaps not as insulting as Hop or the Lorax, many consider the Secret Life of Pets series to be just a bit on the dull side of things. Like with many other Illumination films, the Pets sequel ended up leaning into the vignette style of storytelling, featuring 3 different adventures. But as cute as those pet-filled adventures might have seemed, there's not much about them that stands out. Honestly, the most noteworthy aspect of the film is its villain, Sergei, simply because of how dark he is as a cruel and abusive circus owner.
What say you, little Sergei?
Outside of that, the various arcs and stories of the pets come off as a bit basic and, at times, even boring. Occasionally, there is a bit of fun to be had, such as with Snowball pretending to be a superhero or Gidget pretending to be a cat, but it's hard to imagine very many audience members over the age of 10 being interested in this sort of stuff. And again, there's nothing wrong with movies specifically for younger kids, but we still kind of see it as harmless yet bland. Switching back to Dr. Seuss for a moment, we're ranking The Grinch next. Although this movie is a bit more in line with a traditional Seuss adaptation, that perhaps may be the biggest point against it, because there's nothing truly awful or memeable or even particularly outrageous about this film. It comes off as fairly unremarkable and forgettable. Many audience members have even compared it to Tofu, mainly due to the Grinch himself being so un-Grinch-like when compared to other incarnations of the character.
I must stop this Christmas from coming.
The movie also has a ton of padding and filler leading up to the Grinch's big holiday heist, further making it seem unnecessary. However, to the film's credit, we will say that the animation and lighting in it is absolutely gorgeous. This, combined with all the holiday sweetness and wholesomeness within it, has managed to charm some audience members, with the ending even making some people cry in certain cases. It may not be the most interesting holiday film out there, but we can certainly understand why it still has its fans. even if it's not as remarkable as the Chuck Jones or Jim Carrey versions of the Grinch tale. Managing to be just a bit better than its sequel, next we have The Secret Life of Pets. Let's address the elephant in the room. Yes, in some ways, the film is pretty much just the first Toy Story, from the two new roommates who don't get along due to one of them being jealous and possessive of their shared owner, to the journey of them trying to find their way home. But while it does take away from the film's sense of originality, the likable cast of characters still manages to provide the film with enough positives to keep it out of the very bottom.
Who are we?
Sure, they may be a bit simple and cliche, but even simple and cliche characters can still be enjoyable. The film's humor and emotional scenes are also a bit on the simple side of things, but can still be effective nonetheless. After all, who doesn't like watching cute animals go around and do cute animal things? Add in the fact that the story feels a bit more focused than the sequel story, and you have yourself a solid start to a franchise. Moving on to the first Sing movie. Like with Pets, this is an ensemble film, but while the character types are very familiar, it's easy to understand why many people who watch this movie walk away with either one character as their favorite, either because they relate to them or because they simply like their story. Though they may not be the most fleshed out, there are some good arcs here and there that are enjoyable to see play out. The whole liar revealed thing with Buster may be a bit frustrating, but at the very least it isn't dragged out. Furthermore, the various performances of the film, especially in the finale, truly are its highlight.
Are you kidding me? It's like watching Jell-O dancing around.
Overall, it just manages to hit that popcorn entertainment sweet spot, being simple and fun without being boring. Even if it is predictable in a sense, the characters and their individual stories are enjoyable enough that we're able to overlook that. Landing right in the middle of Illumination's catalog is Despicable Me 3. Right from the start, it seemed like this movie had a bit of an uphill battle, given that it was going with the long-lost twin brother storyline, which many were rolling their eyes at when they first saw the trailer. Unfortunately, Drew wasn't able to win too many fans over, still coming off as more of a cliche trope than an actual lovable and endearing character.
I'm so sorry, Gru.
The film itself had a very TV show-esque story due to so many of the characters being separated, and some audiences felt that it was a wasted opportunity to not have Gru be more tempted about his brother offering him a chance to be a villain again. We may love good guy Gru just fine, but it would have been an interesting conflict to see him torn between wanting to have fun as a villain and wanting to do what was best for his family. But despite the film's more underwhelming elements, some have still been able to find plenty to laugh at and enjoy in this movie. Even its goofy 80s themed villain has some fans. Although it's without a doubt the weakest Despicable Me film so far, it still manages to stand head and shoulders above a good chunk of Illumination's other films. Sticking with the Despicable Me franchise for a bit, next is the first Minions movie. Although some may see this movie as Minion overload, being the point where the little yellow Tic Tacs officially wore out their welcome. We feel that this movie is still an enjoyable adventure that isn't as annoying as some may claim. Sure, the charm may have been worn down a bit, but the core trio of Kevin, Stuart, and Bob still works well enough when the focus is on them. The film also brings in fun new concepts such as VillainCon and features a stylish late 60s aesthetic that further adds to the fun. It can be pretty wacky at times, but in our opinion, it never goes too far with that wackiness, allowing it to remain amusing at the very least instead of agitating. Of course, you can't forget the film's best element, that being the delightfully wicked Scarlet Overkill and her husband, Herb. They're a fun villain couple, something we hadn't gotten in the franchise at that point, who add not only a lot of enjoyment, but also a lot of action and tension to the film. They aren't the best written villains, admittedly, nor is this even the best Minions movie, but we feel there's still enough here to like and laugh at that justifies its spot on the upper half of our list. Ranking just a notch or two above its contemporaries, we have Despicable Me 2. Being Illumination's first sequel film, it admittedly was no Shrek 2 in terms of sequel quality. Its story can be a bit on the weak side, and some may roll their eyes a bit at all the spy stuff. There are also complaints about the movie meandering a bit, not having as strong of a story as it could have.
jams and jellies.
But for all its technical faults, the movie was still successful in other ways. New characters like Lucy and El Macho quickly gained fans, while much of what made the first Despicable Me good, such as the silly humor and adorable moments with the Gru family, were still present enough for the movie to remain satisfying. There are still some flaws that keep it from being a perfect sequel, like the previously mentioned spy elements and the focus being just a bit more on romance than on family, but we still find it to be pretty enjoyable nonetheless. Just outside of our top 3, we're going to rank the spectacular Sing 2. By this point, Illumination has seemed to master the art of putting on a flashy and memorable show of sorts, and this movie is the perfect representation of that. Sure, you could argue that the story and the characters feel just as shallow and trope-filled as they were in the first movie, and you certainly wouldn't be wrong.
What did you say, Mr. Moon?
But because everything feels so much bigger and more fun and even dramatic in some cases, it's easier to ignore the film's weaker story elements and just enjoy the ride. The set pieces are amazing, the songs are total showstoppers, more of the jokes hit, and even the villain, Jimmy Crystal, has his moments of being truly intimidating. All in all, while you won't find anything too deep or thought-provoking in this film, it's still an incredibly fun time. Earning our bronze medal for Best Illumination Film, we have Minions: The Rise of Gru. Many were excited to see Gru return to being a villain to the point of being willing to sit through Minion shenanigans to see it. And judging by the reviews, not too many were disappointed. Seeing Gru as a kid villain and eventually bond with his evil idol, Wild Knuckles, was the highlight of the film for many, being both sweet and fun to watch. Between the character's design and Steve Carell's vocal performance, you can't help but be endeared by the little bad guy. But even if you're only interested in the Gru stuff, the Minion stuff isn't all that bad either. Kevin, Bob, and Stuart are all once again in top form, and while the other Minions may seem as annoying, Otto ends up being a pretty enjoyable character too.
Rawr, rawr.
Seeing the Minions' journey to rescue their mini-boss is a fun one that, due to its fast-paced nature, never becomes too boring or annoying, culminating in an action-packed climax. Really, the only complaint we've seen is that the Vicious Six are all completely flat villains who barely have any character to them, and while that's indeed true, they still manage to be serviceable threats who don't take away from how enjoyable this prequel is. For our silver medal winner for Best Illumination Film, we're giving that honor to the studio's most recent film, the Super Mario Bros. Movie. While maybe just a bit overhyped in retrospect, the Mario movie is still an incredibly fun time with some great action sequences, a ton of laughs, and even a good bit of heart here and there. Nearly all the characters are portrayed perfectly, both by the script and by their voice actors, and yes, even Chris Pratt.
What is this place?
It's also just a fun adventure that feels like something straight out of the games. The film's music is fantastic, and Mario and Luigi's brotherly relationship, despite only really being focused on at the start and end of the film, is also really wholesome and fun to watch. However, many fans have agreed that the pacing in the film was just too fast and that it probably could have used an extra 15 or 20 minutes added to the runtime. Without this extra time, some of the arcs like Mario and Donkey Kong's rivalry turned friendship, their relationship with their dads, and Luigi learning to be brave felt a bit undercooked. And speaking of Green Mario, many also felt disappointed with his lack of screen time, being stuck in a cage for a good chunk of the movie. But while these flaws are just a bit disappointing, they don't take away from an incredibly enjoyable film. And if you're a Nintendo fan already, the movie is definitely a home run. So another point for good video game to movie adaptations. And hey, we've seen quite a few animated movie sequels lately that are actually better than the originals. So if they end up cooking up a sequel, maybe that one will be a 10 out of 10. But real quick before we get to our last entry, if you're enjoying this video and you want to do us a huge favor, hit that subscribe button and notification bell. We ask because we'd really appreciate the help in getting to our next milestone, and we have a ton more content in the works that we can't wait to share with you. Finally, the movie we feel is the best Illumination film and the winner of the gold medal is the original Despicable Me. Sometimes you just can't beat your first attempt. It's the one that started it all, and it's the one that many feel still has the most heart, the tightest story, and the most well-earned character arcs of all Illumination's films. Not to mention some jokes that still manage to make people laugh, and a climax that goes from being tense and action-filled to incredibly sweet and wholesome. Watching Gru bond with the girls is without a doubt a true highlight to the film, and it's an element that is very well done. While Vector, for many fans, is one of the best and most hilarious Illumination villains. Now, we still can't call it a completely flawless film. Being made in 2010, the animation has obviously aged quite a bit. We're also sure that many would roll their eyes at the film's occasional use of toilet humor. But while those things may have aged the movie a smidge, the fact that many still consider it one of Illumination's best films proves just how well it's been able to stand the test of time. It was the film that started it all, and we're happy to call it the best Illumination film so far. Though we do hope that a new Illumination film will someday top it. Super Mario Bros. Movie 2, just saying. But let us know in the comments section if you agree with our list, and tell us what your favorite Illumination movie is. Be sure to hit that notification bell and binge more of our videos. But most importantly, stay wicked.